Ahoy there! Welcome to my chapter review for One Piece chapter 1115. The chapter title is Continental Fragments. So, in the last chapter, Vegapunk was going into the announcement and he indicated that we might be heading into a Joy Boy flashback. And of course, we went into break after that, so we've had 2 weeks to ruminate and speculate on whether we are getting a Joy Boy flashback and maybe what information will be revealed, what information or what clues are already in place that this Joy Boy flashback could fill in the blanks on. So it's going to be interesting to see if we are going into a Joy Boy flashback, because that would be massive. One of the most massive events to transpire in the manga would be a Joy Boy flashback at this point. So we will see if that's happening here in Egghead of all places, or if maybe we're just going to get a sort of teaser going into it. Maybe just a teaser setting up for a Joy Boy flashback down the road in the future. Maybe during Elbaf or during whatever arcs may lay after Elbaf. So we've got our title page here. Continuing the Yamato journey throughout Wano. Oni Child Yamato and the Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage, Volume 5. Getting a bento from Hiyori and Otoko. So we see Otoko taking care of Hiyori. They're making a bento. Actually, it's 2 bento boxes. Otoko is making the rice balls, and Hiyori is setting up arranging the food items in the in the bento boxes, and Yamato is sitting in the background smiling. So it's a nice little page. Notes from Oda. Ato's recent concert at the National Stadium was incredible. The world-traveling pop princess keeps outdoing herself. Okay. And we are into the chapter. And this is interesting. It's Wano. The flower capital, Wano. The news shakes Wano too. It's hard to believe this foreign transmission is reaching us. And then we've got Vegapunk's transmission continuing. Now, you may be wondering how he came to be known as a pirate. And back to the voice speaking, we found the snail in the castle among Orochi's possessions. There's Momonosuke eating. So you were a pirate, Joy Boy, just like Luffy. And then Kinemon, of him, my lord? A jail cell at the G4 naval base. Joy Boy, who cares? I bet you could easily beat him, right, Captain Kidd? Duh, the man's already dead. So, what we have here is DeMarco Black and his crew, the pirates that pretended to be Luffy in Shabaondi when the Straw Hats finally returned after the 2 years of training. So the fake Straw Hats are now the fake Kid pirates. DeMarco is dressed up as Kid, and his henchmen are all, his crew members are all dressed up as members of Kid's crew. So, and they are in the jail cell at the G4 naval base, so they've been captured. And they're hearing the announcement, it looks like. Joy Boy, who cares? I bet you could easily beat him, right, Captain Kidd? Duh, the man's already dead. That's our captain. The only thing bigger than his confidence is his belly. Yeah, clearly I'm a million times tougher than this Joy toy. It's Joy Boy, boss. And now we've got naval soldiers gasping, so we're back on Egghead. Naval soldiers on the ship. And Vegapunk's broadcast is continuing. Do bear in mind, I only have access to a handful of poneglyphs. But their combined narrative clearly chronicles an unbelievable history about a great war in the distant past. During that period, Joy Boy faced an enemy, the organization now known as the World Government. Wait, isn't that us? Well, he did say he was a pirate. Vegapunk, and now we're back to Luffy, Dory, and Brogy still running away from Topman. Back then, they were merely the Allied Powers, a temporary coalition consisting of 20 separate kingdoms. And now we're back in the Labostratum, and we've got Mars using his Conqueror's Haki to take out and attack every transponder snail he can possibly find. So he's trying his best to locate the actual one that's broadcasting by destroying any transponder snail he comes across. It can be assumed that an alliance was the only feasible way to oppose the formidable faction to which Joy Boy belonged. I'm afraid that the cause of this conflict still eludes me, so I do not presume to judge the morality of the combatants. I can, however, say that this war was a clash of two opposing ideologies. I mentioned earlier that Joy Boy was born into a fantastical civilization. And now we've got Zoe, Zunisha, one so advanced that it is hard to believe it existed over 900 years ago. And now we've got the citizens of Zoe, we've got Carrot, Wanda, all the musketeers. The weapons that existed during this century-long struggle are far beyond our modern science. What's that peanut-headed fool saying? And we've got the Foxy Pirates. Ah, boss, you're making me hungry. He's so big-headed. So the Foxy Pirates are on a little dinghy, and it's just Foxy and his two henchmen. Looks like they're beat up, so I'm wondering, have they been fighting, or they must, or is it just to show that they're in a raggedy state because they're just in a little dinghy with a tattered sail, and of course Foxy's head on the front of the dinghy. But Foxy and his friends now have post-time skip designs. Biggest change is Foxy now has a goatee and a mustache, and they're both crinkly shaped and very fitting for Foxy. Such a technology is baffling even to a genius such as myself. And therein lies our problem. Back to Labostratum. Gotcha. Stussy, please. Huh? It's me, Edison. So you've got Stussy and Kaku inside the bubble, and he's listening to the conversation, but he is still inside the bubble. Lower the barrier and hightail it out of there. But I can't. What if something were to happen to the Straw Hat crew? Huff, huff. I'm gonna be straight with ya. There ain't no point in the barrier no more. Not when there are monsters on the island who can ignore it. We've done all we can for them. I'm sure they'll make it somehow. Now we're back to Zoro and Jinbei. Jinbei's still carrying Zoro and running. Getting a broadcast or a message. Jinbei, how much longer? My apologies, we're almost there. There's nothing to apologize for. We were busy. Is that you, Zoro? You're gonna get it later. Now hurry up. They're moving their ships to the blockade. Or they're moving our ships to blockade the northeast. And it's Nami on the other end, so she was calling Jinbei and Zoro as they're trying to catch up to the Sunny. I'll never forgive you if we get blasted out of the water after all this. That's good to hear. I was worried Stella would never forgive me if I let them get caught. As if, now get your ass out of there. But I don't know what to do with myself. Huh? Now that Stella's gone, who am I meant to live for? I have no purpose. Kaku's still listening. Don't let him use his swords. So we're back at Bonnie, Sanji, Uemo, and Kashi versus Ethan, Jupiter. Wait. Ethan v. Nustero. He's Venus. That's right. So versus Venus, Ethan v. Nustero. The Skeezer can cut anything. So they're fighting. Bonnie's still in a giant form and trying to kick at Venus. Ethan. Kashi has grabbed him by the tail. Sanji is on the ground. Looks like he's falling back, so he must have been hit. Now we've got Venus communicating, I think, telepathically. Sense the living voices. And he's doing this at the same time as he's fighting. He kicks Kashi, Bonnie, and he makes a massive, huge slash, trying to cut down Bonnie. Frankie grabs her and pulls her down out of the way of the slash. Get down, Bonnie. Yeah. Slash cuts the I forget what it's called, the figurehead right off of one of the giant ships. Bonnie has shrunken down to, looks like, her child form. Now Frankie's curious about the change. I can't maintain distorted future for very long. Wheeze, wheeze. Now back to the broadcast. The Void Century ended with Joy Boy's defeat. And at this end, we've got panels showing the Giant and Zunisha. So this is definitely proving that the Giant and Zunisha are both connected to Joy Boy. They're both perhaps part of part of Joy Boy's kingdom, perhaps? They're part of Joy Boy's kingdom. How much do you intend to say, Vegapunk? He's leaving? So Venus is leaving now, leaping away. There are too many life forms up here. And he does. But after the aftermath, but the aftermath had grander consequences. In the wake of that ancient conflict, scarred the world, and those scars never healed. And we've got Venus doing a massive slash, cutting the island in half. The cloud island, the island cloud that the Labostratum sits on top of. He just sliced the entire thing in half with a single slice. So it's a pretty big sword feat for Venustro. What the? And the Cypherpole agents that were trapped inside the bottom part of the Labostratum, they're now free because the top part has been cut off. And the Seraphim are also noticing that they've been freed. So the Seraphim are going to be loose. The Cypherpole agents are going to be loose. Oh, wait, the Seraphim are still inside bubbles, so they might not be a problem yet. But they're one step closer to being a problem. Okay, back to the broadcast. As the Cypherpole agents and the Seraphim are falling, we all know travel between islands can be excruciatingly difficult. The seas one must traverse are so vast and perilous, most people are content to live and die at their place of birth, never experiencing any culture other than their own. Isn't that a bit obvious? Yeah, ha, everyone knows the seas are dangerous. So you've got people, not sure, this looks like a random island. Maybe it's a random island. It's not any island that I recognize, but just some people, random people watching the broadcast on an island. That is common knowledge to us now. But it wasn't like that 1,000 years ago. We've got the Shimotsuki village, the children in the dojo while training, and a shot of Kurina's father. A cataclysmic ecological disaster occurred during the Void Century, and the ancient world was swallowed by the ocean. We are now living atop the remnants, continental fragments of the land masses that once were. Say what? So we get a shot of deep underwater. It's not Fishman Island, but there's giant sea kings, and we see underwater ruins for underwater ruins for a civilization, probably one of the civilizations from the Void Century. Then we get a shot of the revolutionaries all reacting to the news as they're hearing it. Everyone's shocked and making shocked expressions, except for Dragon. He's pretty stoic as usual. And we got Sabo thinking while listening to broadcasts. The world of a millennia ago sleeps unseen at the bottom of the ocean. I know it is hard to believe on my word alone, but there really were multiple vast continents back then. This is insane. Hey, Nojiko, where do you think you're going? The whole world is at stake. Fill me in later. I've got to check on the tangerine orchard. Nojiko. So we're back in Windmill Village. Or not Windmill Village. It's Kokoyashi Village. Nami's hometown. We've got Genzo listening in. The doctor and Nojiko in the background. She's walking away to go deal with the tangerines. This change in the world helps explain how a century of history could be censored, a feat that seems nigh impossible, but it makes sense when you consider the undeniable conclusion it all points that when you consider the undeniable conclusion all the data points to. Within a mere century, the average sea level rose by a staggering 200 meters. What? You're kidding. To 200? You got the Marines all really very shocked with this news. A warship's only 60 meters tall. No wonder the old world disappeared. Hey, stop listening to this crap. We have work to do. The Seraphim and all those imprisoned Cypherpol agents were spotted falling out of the lab building. Got to rescue them. Now we're back in Mocktown again. Did you hear that? His tall tales keep getting taller. The old fart's lost his marbles. What a joke. And everyone's bursting into laughter and mocking. Got Drum Island or Sakura Kingdom. Is that really possible? Even now, the world still finds a way to keep things interesting. So we've got Dalton and Kureha and one of the bear rabbits. That mountain is around 200 meters. And now we're in somewhere else. Looks like a desert place. And there's Miss Golden Week with an apple, a hat on her head shaped like the top of an apple. And of course, she's eating a rice cracker, carrying a briefcase. Is she going somewhere? This doesn't look like it's Alabasta, but it is a desert kingdom because we've got cacti. You're saying something that tall would be submerged? That's awful. How many people died? That begs the question, how and why did such a flood occur? Naturally, your first inclination might be to assume it was some kind of natural disaster. However, I can say for certain that it was no such thing. It was a man-made calamity. And now we are, I think we're back at Water 7 because we've got someone with the Galila company jacket on, so I think that's Water 7. We've got people looking on to a video of Vegapunk's announcement. Now we've got the World Economic News balloon. You can't be serious. We've got BB covering Big News Morgan's mouth because I guess he was the one screaming. She's telling him to be quiet so they can listen. If this catastrophe was brought about by natural means, there would be records denoting early warning signs several centuries earlier. It was a severe world-altering event after all, but all my research into meteorology, geology, ecology, and atmospheric science confirmed that there was no such natural buildup. It is impossible for such a drastic change to happen spontaneously within the span of a mere 100 years, meaning the cause lies elsewhere. My suspicions were confirmed a few days ago when I analyzed the world's current sea levels. Now we're getting close-ups of Mars, Saturn, and Topman. They're all looking very grim. This will be hard to accept, but that disaster 800 years ago was caused by ancient weapons technology capable of sinking the world. And that very same firepower evidently still exists, just waiting to be used again. In other words, that great war which ravaged the world during the Void Century is still ongoing. And it ends with Castle Pangea, the room with Emu inside. And it ends with a close-up of Emu, but of course, Emu's still a silhouette with the piercing eyes. That's the end of the chapter. The genius sheds light on a forgotten history. So, what I was speculating before reading the chapter is kind of what it turned out to be. It's a taste. It's not the flashback, not the Joy Boy flashback. It's basically the setup for the Joy Boy flashback. Because the sun god Nika is an Elbaf legend. Elbaf worships the sun, so they worship the sun god Nika. It's a tale from Elbaf. So Elbaf will naturally go into the history of the deity Nika. So maybe as part of that, they will explain the history of the deity Nika, and then going on from that, because of the connection between Nika and Joy Boy, they will do the Joy Boy flashback during Elbaf, possibly. Because, thinking about it, it could be a perfect bridge, because the legend of Nika can be told in Elbaf, most likely will be told in Elbaf. So that will be, depending on how much detail Oda wants to give on Nika, because Nika is a god, a deity. It can either be a full-on story, but that would have to kind of delve into the... It would have to delve into history even before. History that predates basically probably the entire existence of the world. If we're talking about actual immortal deities, and it will have to dive into if there are other deities and what they were like. So that would have to be a pretty decently sizable flashback if they were going to do that as a flashback. Or they could just give basic details, what the legends say about Nika, what the story and the legend and the history that is passed down about Nika is. They could sort of give a 30,000-foot overview of that, because it eventually has to lead to a point where an explanation has to be made of how the powers of these deities, or this deity in particular, Nika, ended up being a devil fruit that could be passed down to humans. So that would be an explanation of Nika, maybe leading into either a tease or a full explanation of how devil fruits are created. And then that leads into the Joy Boy flashback, with Joy Boy being the most recent person before Luffy to fully awaken the Nika fruit. And then that will give off Joy Boy's flashback. So we could get a sort of chain reaction, a chain event of flashbacks, an explanation of Nika, an explanation of the creation of devil fruits, or at least one particular devil fruit. But once they show the creation of one devil fruit, it has to connect to the creation of all devil fruits. So it's possible they could do that. It's also possible they could just skip over explaining Nika's legend, really, because it's important, but it's not really critical, especially at this point. So it could be something that where Nika's, and especially since Nika is a god, you can't explain the entirety of a god's existence, because once you do, their presence in the story is no longer that godly. There's no mystery to it. There's no natural phenomenon, unexplained element to it. Once you explain a god, a character in a manga, they are just a really powerful character. They're not really a god anymore. So with that in mind, maybe it's better to never fully explain any of the god characters' powers in One Piece, to leave that mystery around them and have them keep that godly element and status in the minds of the reader. So maybe there will be very little explanation about the sun god Nika besides the legends that are known, and they can just do a Joy Boy flashback. That's a possibility, but they still do have to explain how these god powers ended up in the Nika fruit. Now that could be explained depending on how devil fruits are created, what the method for creating devil fruits is. And if Bonnie's powers, specifically her hypothetical future power, is connected to the way devil fruits actually work and how they're created, then it's possible that Nika doesn't need to be explained at all. Because if it's as simple as Vegapunk seemed to hint that devil fruits were the manifestation of human desire, they're the manifestation of human desire or dreams, then someone doesn't actually have to know a whole lot. They don't have to know everything about Nika. Just everything that they would learn from the legend about Nika would be enough to create a devil fruit that has Nika's powers, if devil fruits are just created by a strong dream or desire for a particular power or ability. So that could be a way to tackle it. You don't have to demystify the god, but you can explain how a god's power is transferred to a devil fruit. If someone that really, really believed in Nika and really, really wanted power similar to Nika desired it strong enough, and however, whatever process manifested that desire into a Nika devil fruit, then that does it without demystifying the gods. So it's it's not at that point yet, but it's probably heading towards that point. Once we get to Elbaf, we will see if we are heading into a Joy Boy flashback. If this is the setup for a Joy Boy flashback, which I have to believe, especially after this is like a huge setup for Joy Boy. And let's see. The elders have started to refocus. The Nostro has seemingly switched focus from the Straw Hats and Bonnie to trying to stop the broadcast. Saturn has switched focus from the Straw Hats to trying to stop the broadcast. Mars is already on point trying to stop the broadcast. Topman is still focused on stopping Luffy and the Giants during Brogy. And we haven't seen Shepard, which is interesting. He did have like the least impressive of the powers, so there's not a whole lot of reason to have him on panels pages because he's just a big old worm digging through the ground. There's not a whole lot of excitement there. But it is interesting he hasn't been present in all this in over the last 3 or 4 chapters. I don't think I've seen him. Has he been telepathically communicating with the other elders? I think he was in some shots, but he hasn't been active on this battlefield. And then that begs the question, what is he doing? He has to be focused on that goal as well, so what's he doing? So, also got some interesting things in this chapter, things I didn't expect we would see, but we are giving, like, this is the biggest, and it makes sense for this news, because this is the Void Century being exposed to the world. This is the most, I think, the highest number of characters around the world that we've seen reactions for. You're going all the way back to the home villages for the Straw Hats. Each of the Straw Hats. I think every place they've visited has been shown. Yep. So far has been shown. Well, almost every place. We haven't seen Enies Lobby, but there's not really a reason to see Enies Lobby because no one important is there. All the important characters that were at Enies Lobby have moved on from Enies Lobby, so who would they show that's there actually at Enies Lobby? No one. They did show Impel Down. They've shown Holy Land, Manjoa, Castle Pangea. They've shown, I guess they also haven't shown Thriller Bark, but Thriller Bark is a crew without their captain, so that's kind of hard to fathom what happens on Thriller Bark. Especially we have to consider what Moria's status is. That's still a mystery, so we can't show Thriller Bark because Thriller Bark exists basically because of Moria's power. If Moria is dead, then all of the zombies would also be dead. So it would be an island full of corpses. No living corpses, just regular corpses with their shadows removed. And if Moria's alive, then seeing all the zombies alive on Thriller Bark would indicate to the reader that Moria must still be alive. So, probably not gonna see Moria just yet, or Thriller Bark just yet, if we ever see Thriller Bark again. It's interesting to note we've got some of the famous characters coming back. We've got Foxy. Finally, post-time skip Foxy, which he hasn't appeared in the story. I think Oda might have drawn what post-time skip Foxy looks like in an SBS, a little doodle of what he looks like. This is the first time we're seeing him proper in the story. Interesting to see Wano. Wano's looking okay. Yep. They still got the Straw Hat Jolly Roger. DeMarco Black is now the ex-fake Luffy, now the current fake Captain Kidd. So I guess the running gag of DeMarco. So the running gag of DeMarco disguising himself as Pirate Cruise. But it is interesting that it's disguised as Kid. Because DeMarco Black's modus operandi, apparently, at least he's done it twice now, so it's probably the way he does things always, is to disguise himself as a really strong pirate crew that appears to have been defeated and is no longer active. He did it with the Straw Hats because he believed the Straw Hat crew was defeated and no longer active because they've been gone for 2 years. He's doing it now with Kid. The Kid pirates have only been defeated for a few days at this rate, maybe even just one day. Let's see. Yeah, I think all the events taking place on Egghead, has it been? I don't think night has fallen on Egghead. Trying to remember. I don't recall ever seeing nightfall. So all of this is happening in a day, around a day, and the Shanks event, that was happening at the same time as Egghead, or was that a little bit before Egghead? It was a little bit before Egghead because Dorian Broggie and the rest of the giant pirates were still there. So they had to set off after Luffy, and it took them a few days or so. I think it was a few days or maybe a few weeks to reach Egghead from Elbaf. So yeah, there will have been a little bit of time, but not 2 years. We're talking a couple of weeks at tops, maybe. Yeah, a couple of weeks, maybe a month tops since Shanks defeated Kid. So I suppose news spread that quickly that DeMarco would know that the Kid Pirates are no longer active and to disguise himself as the Kid Pirates. But if that's the case, would he not also know that Law and the Heart Pirates have also been defeated and are no longer active? So could it be that? But it is interesting to see that he's chosen Kid, probably because Kid having the violent reputation, and DeMarco would want to take advantage of that because he wants people to be afraid of him. So that works out. Got the Foxy Pirates. They still don't have a crew anymore, or a Jolly Roger, or anything other than a small dinghy. So perhaps they will eventually rebuild their crew now that they've been at least noted in the story. We have the news of the world. So the ancient weapons caused the world to flood. And the line of thinking that the sea level was Not just lower, but severely reduced. There were massive land continents in the One Piece world 1,000 years ago. And ancient weapons caused a flood, which means, wait a second, let's see, how does this connect us to the Ark, the Noah? So the Noah is a ship, and given the name, it was definitely a ship built to ferry people in the event of a great flood. Joy Boy made a promise relating to Noah. The promise was to take the inhabitants of Fishman Island onto the Noah. And he made this promise 800 years ago to the Sea Kings. And the fishmen, because there was a mermaid princess back then, at least according to history. And that is real history, history from the Poneglyph, so it's not, well, government propagandized history. I was going to suggest that maybe the Ark was built, well, Ark, it was bigger than Fishman Island, so it couldn't have been built on Fishman Island. It was constructed on land. It had to have been, because it was during the voice century, so there was more land. So there was, say, an island, a land island, near Fishman Island. And that's where the Noah was constructed. Joy Boy made a promise to Fishman Island. But where? Where would he carry? Where would Joy Boy take the inhabitants on Fishman Island? Where would he take them once they boarded the Noah? They're already fishermen, so the world flooding doesn't really impact them that way. Unless Fishman Island was going to be destroyed. If the island was going to be destroyed, that makes sense, taking them, I guess, on the Noah to somewhere else, even though he would take them to the surface. He would take the boat underwater, coat it, take it underwater, have the fishermen board it, and take them to the surface before Fishman Island was destroyed. Could that be the promise? Seems like maybe that's the case. Okay. Seems like that could be the case. Even though it seems like that's kind of simple for the purpose of the Noah, but it's hard to picture anything more grand than that, especially considering the element of the flooding of the world. The Noah wouldn't have much use until after the world was flooded. Because before the world was flooded, there wouldn't be that much ocean or need for a ship that massive to carry that many people over such a short distance. So the Noah requires a flood. That's noted. Ancient Wano. Yes, the flood. Okay, check. Water 7. The cities that Water 7 is built on top of every time. Okay. What else? Don Chinjiao's ice continent. The treasure buried under the ice. Is that ancient treasure from 1,000 years ago, buried under the ice? No, it was Don Chinjiao's treasure. He hid it there. And the key to getting back to his treasure was the shape of his head. So no, not Don Chinjiao's treasure in the ice. Horus, the continent puller. But Horus was... I don't think Horus was that old. Was Horus Ancient Kingdom old? He lived during the Ancient Kingdom. Or the Void Century, I should say. If he did... Pulling continents. Maybe. Okay. So I'm thinking with all the elders focused on stopping the broadcast now, we might be heading towards the point where they cut off the broadcast. Because Vegapunk has explained the bulk of everything. The whole world has heard it. It's still kind of a question if we could be heading into a flashback, but the fact we didn't head into a flashback after the reveal of Joy Boy's existence kind of leads me to believe that yes, that is not happening right now. Which means we should be heading back into current day Egghead. So the escape is probably going to be where we pick up. The elders are going to be fighting to stop the broadcast. Once they stop the broadcast, the Straw Hats will probably be on the way off the island if they haven't already completely escaped the island. So I think that's what's being set up here. We are heading back into the climax of Egghead. We got an announcement to the world. Kind of reveals some details about Joy Boy. Set up for an eventual Joy Boy flashback, because there's got to be one at this point. Managed to reveal a lot of good information about the Void Century, but not entirely demystify it. There's still a lot still hidden. So Robin's dream and her purpose is not hurt by this. In fact, this event could be a catalyst for making even more people want to hunt down Robin as one of the few people on the planet that can read and translate the poneglyphs. So that's an interesting point that might pop up. But yeah, this wasn't the Joy Boy flashback, and I was 50-50 on whether it would be the full-on Joy Boy flashback or not. At least I think I was 50-50 2 weeks ago. At least I expected that this was a likely possibility, even if I wasn't 50-50 on it. So it's not a surprise. It did confirm things. It confirmed the connection to the ancient weapons specifically. So I think this also confirms the Mother Flame as being an ancient weapon. Even though I don't think it's Uranus, but maybe it is Uranus. Because the ancient kingdom had more than just 3 ancient weapons. So the 3 we know of that survive today might not be the only ones that survive to today. There could be more ancient weapons than just the 3. But then that brings up the question of what are the ancient weapons? Why was a living mermaid princess qualified as an ancient weapon? Is ancient weapon just a title, like pirates, that the world government ascribed to things that they felt were a threat to their emerging authority, their emerging global control? So anything that could have posed a threat to that was labeled an ancient weapon. Or anything that might be from technology from that ancient kingdom, also labeled an ancient weapon. So it might be a case of a title given by the world government to things that they think are a threat. That is possible. So we got connection to ancient weapons. We also got confirmation or a stronger indication that Zunisha and the ancient robots are from the same kingdom as Joy Boy, which I think everyone kind of knew at this point. So it's nice to have it closer to confirmed than it was. This idea of the world flooding, that's going to be a thing. How did it start to flood? And then it becomes the question of, now that we know it's flooding, what's the goal here? What does saving the world and fixing the world at this point look like? Is it returning things to the status quo? Stopping the world from flooding any further as an end goal for the series? Or is it actually receding the flood waters that flooded this world 800 years ago? Or not 900 years ago? Receding back to pre-flood world. I'm not sure about that. This is another thing that could probably go either way. Huh. First person to be called a pirate. Yeah, there's still a whole lot that Joy Boy's flashback is going to have to explain. But now we know the state of the world, have a sort of theory on what caused the flooding. And it was a war between the ancient kingdom and the alliance of 20 nations, 20 kingdoms, over ideologies, which tracks with the world government and what we know about the ancient kingdom. So that's probably going to be it for this chapter review. It's a really nice setup chapter for Joy Boy's flashback. It continued the world-changing news and sort of wrapped up the... I think with this, we've probably wrapped up the bulk of what Vegapunk wants to announce. There might be one last detail that he wanted to reveal, that he wants to reveal, that will be cut off when the elders manage to finally destroy this video transponder. And it will cut off that mystery just as Vegapunk is about to reveal it. Maybe it would be something related to the One Piece. That would be a great cutoff. Vegapunk starts to indicate a little bit of what the One Piece is. Not a lot. Just not even a hint, but just a suggestion, a mild speculation. Might even a mild speculation might start and it cuts off, even though he said he was going to stick with the truth or what he knew, what he could confirm through his research. So no speculation or conjecture from him. So it would have to be a hard fact about the One Piece he would be about to reveal. So maybe nothing about the One Piece in this broadcast from Vegapunk. Yeah, nothing about that. So yeah, we're setting up for the climax of the arc still. And I think things are slowly moving into place. We will see where all the major players are by the end of the arc and how the Straw Hats will manage to get away. And with that, I will catch you all in the next chapter. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.